There was a dreadful pause, and then everyone began asking, "Who saw him last? How long has he been missing? Is he outside?" And then all rushed to the door and looked out. The snow was falling thickly and steadily. The green ice of the pool had vanished under a thick, white blanket, and from where the little house stood in the center of the dam, you could hardly see either bank. Out they went, plunging well over their ankles into the snow, new snow, and went round the house in every direction. "Edmund, Edmund!" they called until they were hoarse. But the silently falling snow seemed to muffle their voices, and there was not even an echo in answer. "How perfectly dreadful!" said Susan, as they last came back in despair. "Oh, how I wish we'd never come!" "What on earth are we to do, Mr. Beaver?" asked Peter. "Do?" said Mr. Beaver, who was already putting on his snow boots. "Do? You must be off at once. We haven't a moment to spare." "We'd better divide into 4 search parties," said Peter, "and all go in different directions. Whoever finds him must come back here at once, and—" "Search parties, son of Adam?" said Mr. Beaver. "What for?" "Why, to look for Edmund, of course." "There's no point in looking for him," said Mr. Beaver. "What do you mean?" said Susan. "He can't be far away yet, and we've got to find him. And what do you mean when they say there's no use looking for him?" "The reason there's no use looking," said Mr. Beaver, "is that we know already where he's gone." Everyone stared in amazement. "Don't you understand?" said Mr. Beaver. "He's gone to her, the White Witch. He has betrayed us all." "Oh, surely—" "Oh, really?" said Susan. "He can't have done that." "Can't he?" said Mr. Beaver, looking very hard at all the 3 children, and everything they wanted to say died on their lips, for each felt suddenly quite certain inside that this was exactly what Edmund had done. "But will he know the way?" said Peter. "Has he been in this country before?" "Has he ever been here alone?" asked Mr. Beaver. "Yes," said Lucy, almost in a whisper. "I'm afraid he has." "And did he tell you what he'd done or who he'd met?" "Well, no, he didn't," said Lucy. "Then mark my words. He has already met the White Witch and joined her side, and been told where she lives. I didn't like to mention it before, he being your brother and all, but the moment I set eyes on that brother of yours, I said to myself, 'Treacherous!' He had the look of one who has been with the witch and eaten her food. You could always tell them if you'd lived long in Narnia. Something about their eyes." "All the same," said Peter in a rather choking sort of voice, "we'll still have to go and look for him. He is our brother after all, even if he is rather a little beast. He's only a kid." "Go to the witch's house?" said Mr. Beaver. "Don't you see that the only chance of saving either of them or yourselves is to keep away from her?" "How do you mean?" said Lucy. "Why, all she wants is you to get all 4 of you. She's thinking all the time of those 4 thrones at Cair Paravel. Once you were all 4 inside her house, her job would be done, and there'd be 4 new statues in her collection before you'd have time to speak. But she'll keep him alive as long as she's the only one she's got. But she'll want to use him as a decoy, as bait to catch the rest of you." "Oh, can no one help us?" wailed Lucy. "Only Aslan," said Mr. Beaver. "We must go on and meet him. That's our only chance now." "It seems to me, my dears," said Mrs. Beaver, "that it is very important to know just when he slipped away. How much he can tell her depends on how much he heard. For instance, had we started talking of Aslan before he left? If not, then we may do very well, for she won't know that Aslan has come to Narnia, or that we are meeting him, and will be quite off her guard as far as that is concerned." "I don't remember his being here when we were talking about Aslan," began Peter, but Lucy interrupted him. "Oh, yes, he was," she said miserably. "Don't you remember? It was he who asked whether the witch couldn't turn Aslan into stone too." "So he did, by Jove!" said Peter. "Just sort of thing he would say, too." "Worse and worse," said Mr. Beaver, And the next thing was he still here when I told you the place for meeting Aslan was the stone table? And of course, no one knew the answer to this question. Because if it was, continued Mr. Beaver, then she'll simply sledge down in that direction and get between us and the stone table and catch us off on our way down. In fact, we shall be cut off from Aslan. But that isn't what she'll do first, said Mrs. Beaver. Not if I know her. The moment that Edmund tells her that we're all here, she'll set out to catch us this very night. And if she's gone about a half an hour, she'll be here in about another 20 minutes. You're right, Mrs. Beaver, said her husband. We must all get away from here. There's not a moment to lose.